The old Krelthari officer walked slowly into the hall. His scales had lost their shine decades ago. Now they were dull gray, marked with scars from battles fought long before the young cadets in the room were born. Commander Vexthal had seen 70 cycles pass since the war ended. 70 years of peace with the humans. The cadets stood at attention. They wore fresh uniforms and carried weapons they had never fired in anger. Their instructor had told them that Commander Vexthal fought in the Great War, the war against humanity. But to these young soldiers, humans were just another species. They traded goods. They shared technology. They smiled and shook hands at diplomatic meetings. Vexthal gestured for them to sit. The hall was dim, lit only by a few amber lights. He preferred it this way. Some memories lived better in shadows. "You think you know about humans," Vexthal said. His voice was rough like grinding stones. "You have human friends. You watch their entertainment programs. You eat at their restaurants." A few cadets nodded. One young female in the front row wore a bracelet made on Earth. It had colorful beads that spelled out words in the human language. "But you have never seen them as we did," Vexthal continued. "You have never faced them when they were angry, when they were hurt, when they decided that something mattered more than their own lives." The room grew quiet. Even the instructor in the back stopped moving. "I commanded a strike unit during the war," Vexthal said. "We won many battles against the coalition forces. The Vren would retreat when we pressed hard enough. The Saltari would surrender when we cut their supply lines. Every species in the galaxy follows the same rules of war. Every species except one." He pulled up a chair and sat down slowly. His joints ached. Everything ached when you got old. "Today I will tell you 3 stories," he said. 3 encounters I had with human forces during the war. After I tell you these stories, you will understand why we made peace, why we had to make peace." A cadet in the 3rd row raised his hand. "Sir, didn't we win the war?" Vexthal made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That is what the history books say. The coalition records state that we fought to a strategic stalemate and agreed to peace terms. That is technically correct, but I will tell you the truth that the books do not say." He looked at each young face in the room. They were so confident, so sure of themselves, just like he had been once. "We survived," Vexthal said quietly. "That is all. We survived the humans, and we were grateful when they stopped hunting us." The cadets shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Their instructor had probably told them stories of great victories, of brilliant military campaigns, of honorable combat. "The first story I will tell you happened early in the war," Vexthal began. "We had just taken a mining colony on the outer edge of what humans called the Epsilon system. My unit was ordered to hold the high ground around the main settlement, standard defensive position." He closed his eyes, remembering. A human patrol came through. 12 soldiers. We outnumbered them 3 to 1, and we had better positions. It should have been simple. We killed 3 of them in the first exchange of fire. Clean shots. They dropped immediately. The rest of their unit took cover behind some mining equipment. We waited. Standard military doctrine says you withdraw when you lose 25% of your force in an ambush, 30% at most. The humans did not withdraw. They stayed. They radioed for something, but we could not understand their language codes yet. Then they did something we did not expect. They fought harder. They pushed toward their dead soldiers. Vexthal opened his eyes and looked at the cadets again. "I want you to understand this. They were not trying to win the battle. They were not trying to capture our position. They were trying to reach the bodies of their fallen soldiers. We thought they were insane. Why would you risk 9 lives for 3 who were already dead? It made no tactical sense, no strategic sense." My second officer wanted to withdraw. He said the humans were behaving irrationally and therefore unpredictably. But I ordered my unit to stay. I wanted to understand what they were doing. So we watched, and what we saw changed everything I thought I knew about warfare. Vexthal stood up slowly and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of the city. So many species living together now. Humans walking beside Krelthari, children playing together in the parks. That human patrol fought for 48 hours, he said, still looking out the window. 48 hours to recover 3 dead bodies. They called in support. More humans came. They set up defensive positions. They planned careful movements, all to bring home their dead. He turned back to face the cadets. We shot 4 more of them during those 2 days. They still did not retreat. Their leader, a sergeant, carried 2 bodies on his back through our fire lanes. He was hit twice. He kept moving. Finally, our command ordered us to withdraw. They said we were wasting ammunition on a fight that served no purpose. The humans were not trying to take territory. They just wanted their dead. Vexthal walked back to his chair. When we pulled back and reviewed the combat footage, I watched that human sergeant again. He was screaming while he ran. Screaming words I later learned. He was telling his dead soldiers that he was taking them home, that he promised he would take them home. The hall was completely silent now. The cadet with the earth bracelet touched it gently, as if seeing it differently. That was my first lesson about humans, Vexthal said. They do not leave their dead behind. Ever. They have a saying in their military forces, no one left behind. They mean it. They will die to keep that promise. He paused and looked at each cadet again. Now I will tell you the second story, and it will frighten you more than the first. Vexthal took a drink of water before continuing. His throat was dry. Talking about the war always made him thirsty. Or maybe it was just fear, even after all these years. The second encounter happened 6 months later, he said. By then, our fleet had pushed deep into human territory. We had learned that humans were stubborn, but we thought we understood the limits of that stubborn nature. We were wrong. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed a space station orbiting a blue-green planet. The station was large, shaped like a wheel, with 6 spokes connecting to a central hub. This was Station Talon 9, Vexthal explained, a critical supply depot for human forces in that sector. Our Admiralty decided it must be taken or destroyed. They sent a fleet of 30 warships. The station had only 3 small defense ships attached to it. The cadets leaned forward. This sounded like it would be an easy battle, a glorious victory. The math was simple, Vexthal continued. We had overwhelming force. The humans had 2 choices. Evacuate and let us take the station, or stay and die. Every species in the coalition would have evacuated. It is not cowardice. It is wisdom. You live to fight another day. He zoomed in on the station in the display. The human commander was a man named Ben Richards. He received the evacuation order from his own military command. They told him to take his people and leave. That the station was not worth their lives. Commander Richards refused the order. He sent a message back to his command that we intercepted. He said they would hold the station or die trying. He said a third option did not exist. One of the cadets raised her hand. Sir, how could they refuse orders? That is against military law. It is, Vexthal agreed. But humans have a strange relationship with orders. They follow them most of the time. But when they believe something is more important than orders, they make their own choices. Their command did not punish Richards. They sent him more supplies instead. He changed the display to show the battle formations. We surrounded the station. We had them trapped, no escape. We demanded surrender. They refused. So we began our attack. Vexthal sat down again. This part of the story was difficult to tell. The battle should have lasted 3 hours at most. It lasted 6 days. 6 days of the most ferocious combat I have ever witnessed. The human defense coordinator was a woman named Amy Walker. She had trained as a fighter pilot, not a station commander. But she understood combat in a way I have never seen before or since. Every time we found a weakness in their defense, she adapted. She moved weapon systems, she redirected power. She found ways to hurt us even when her station was falling apart. The holographic display showed damage to the station. Sections were blown open to space. Hull plates were torn away. Life support failed in entire segments. Any other species would have surrendered after the first day, Vexthal said. The casualties were too high. The damage was too severe. But the humans did not surrender. They did something that defied all military logic. He paused, making sure every cadet was listening. They fought harder. As their situation became more hopeless, their resistance became more fierce. It made no sense. When an animal is cornered and knows it will die, it gives up. When a soldier knows the battle is lost, he surrenders to live another day. This is rational. This is sane. But humans do not think this way. When they know they cannot win, something changes in them. They stop fighting to win. They start fighting to make you pay the highest price possible for your victory. A cadet in the back spoke up. But sir, that is suicide. That is wasteful. Yes, Vexthal said. It is. And it is terrifying. Because when you know your enemy will fight to the absolute last breath, you cannot predict what they will do. You cannot plan for it. He zoomed in on a section of the station. Their chief engineer was a man called Chris Martinez. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, he made new weapons. He took mining equipment and turned it into bombs. He took emergency oxygen tanks and turned them into missiles. He used every piece of metal, every wire, every system on that station as a weapon. On the 5th day of the battle, we breached the station hull. We sent troops inside. We expected the humans to finally surrender. We found 147 human personnel left alive out of the original 400. They had no military weapons left. Vexathal's voice became quieter. They fought us with tools, with chairs, with pieces of broken metal. Amy Walker was wounded in 4 places. She was still directing defenders using a damaged communication system. Ben Richards had lost his left arm to explosive decompression. He was fighting with his right hand, using a piece of pipe as a weapon. The room was silent. No one moved. We lost 230 soldiers taking that station, Vexthal said. 230 Krelthari warriors died to defeat 147 humans who had already lost. The cost was higher than if we had simply destroyed the station from orbit. He turned off the holographic display. When we finally secured the command center, I met Commander Richards face to face. He could barely stand. His uniform was covered in blood, most of it his own. I asked him why he did not surrender. Why he threw away so many lives for a battle he could not win. Do you know what he said to me? Vexthal looked around the room. He said that surrender was not in his nature. He said that every minute his people held that station, other humans somewhere else were using that time to prepare, to fight back, to survive. Then he said something I will never forget. He said that humans calculate victory differently than we do. For us, victory means winning. For humans, victory can mean losing slowly enough that it matters. Vexthal stood and walked to the window again. After that battle, our Admiralty changed tactics. They ordered commanders to avoid direct confrontation with human forces whenever possible. They said that even when we won against humans, we lost too much to make it worthwhile. He turned back to the cadets. That was my second lesson about humans. They are most dangerous when they are losing. When you corner them, when you take away all hope of victory, they transform into something worse than any nightmare. They become soldiers who fight not to live, but to make their deaths count. A long silence filled the hall. Finally, Vexthal spoke again. Now I will tell you the third story, and this one will show you why we truly feared them. why we still respect them today. The cadets waited. Some of them looked nervous now. The stories were not what they expected. These were not tales of honorable combat and clean victories. These were something else, something darker. Vexithal walked back to his chair but did not sit. He stood behind it, gripping the back with both hands. His claws scraped slightly against the metal. "The third encounter happened late in the war," he said. "I had been promoted to base commander by then. I oversaw a large military installation on a moon in the contested zone. We had 3,000 troops stationed there, good defenses, strong weapons. We felt secure." He paused, his eyes distant. 6 months before this incident, our fleet had destroyed a human colony world called Colony 7. It was a military necessity. The colony was being used as a staging ground for human attacks. Our admiralty ordered it neutralized. The strike was clean and efficient. We destroyed the military installations. But there were civilians on that world, 4,000 of them. They did not evacuate in time. They died when we destroyed the military targets. One of the cadets spoke up. "But sir, that is the cost of war. Civilians die in war zones. It is unfortunate, but it happens." "Yes," Vexthal agreed. "Every species understands this. In war, there is collateral damage. After such incidents, most species negotiate. They seek compensation. They hold trials for war crimes if the deaths were intentional. Then they move forward. This is how civilized beings handle tragedy." He let go of the chair and walked to the center of the room. "Humans are not like most species. They do not forget. They do not move forward. Not when their people are killed. 6 months after Colony 7 was destroyed, a human team infiltrated my base. We had excellent security. Sensors, guards, automated defenses. They got through all of it. We did not even know they were there until they wanted us to know." Vexthal activated another holographic display. It showed a military base layout with highlighted sections. The team was led by a captain named Ryan Brooks. He had 12 soldiers with him. One was a woman named Kelly Price who specialized in explosives. Another was a man called Nick Torres who gathered intelligence. They moved through my base like ghosts. They bypassed valuable targets. They ignored our weapon storage. They did not sabotage our communications. They had one specific mission, one specific goal. He highlighted several positions on the map. They were hunting specific individuals, every officer who had been involved in the decision to destroy Colony 7, every ship captain who had fired weapons at that world, every commander who had given orders. The room grew very quiet. The cadets understood what that meant. "I was not at Colony 7, Vexthal said. "I had nothing to do with that operation. That night, I encountered Captain Brooks in a corridor. He had a weapon pointed at me. I thought I was dead. But he lowered his weapon. He said he had checked his files. I was not on his list. Then he and his team walked past me. They were not there for revenge against all Krelthari. They were there for specific justice against specific individuals." Vexithal turned off the display. Nick Torres carried data files on every Krelthari officer involved in Colony 7. Names, faces, service records, what they did, what orders they gave. The humans had documented everything. Every single person who bore responsibility. That night, 17 of my officers died. Only 17. Not one civilian, not one support staff member. Not one soldier who was not directly involved in Colony 7. Kelly Price set explosive charges that destroyed only the exact targets she wanted destroyed. No collateral damage. Perfect precision. A cadet raised his hand. "Sir, how did they know who was responsible? How did they track that information across 6 months and multiple star systems?" "That is the point," Vexthal said. "That is what you need to understand about humans. They document everything. They record everything. They remember everything. When you wrong them, they do not forget. Ever. But here is what frightened me most. Here is what made me recommend to our high command that we seek peace immediately." He walked closer to the cadets. The humans could have killed hundreds that night, thousands. They had penetrated our base. They had explosives. They had weapons. They could have caused massive damage. But they chose not to. They only killed those they deemed responsible. They had the capacity for enormous violence, but they exercised restraint. They combined perfect memory with precise justice. Vexithal sat down heavily in his chair. After they completed their mission, they left a message on our communication system. Captain Brooks recorded it himself. He said that they did not forget, and they did not forgive, but he also said they were not monsters. He said that every Krelthari officer who was involved in Colony 7 would be held accountable, but those who were innocent would not be harmed. He said humans understood the difference between justice and revenge. Then he said something that kept me awake for months. He said that if we wanted peace, it was available. But if we wanted continued war, humans would fight it. And they would win it. Because they never forget, they never quit, and they will cross the entire galaxy to make things right. The old commander looked at each cadet. I sent that message to our Admiralty. I told them that humans were not like any enemy we had ever faced. Other species fight for territory, for resources, for power. Humans fight for ideas, for principles, for their dead. You cannot negotiate with that kind of enemy. You cannot wear them down. You cannot make them forget. You cannot make them quit. Your only choice is to kill every single one of them or make peace. He stood up slowly. Our Admiralty wisely chose peace, and that peace has held for 70 years. Do you know why? The cadets shook their heads. Because humans honor peace the same way they honor war, completely, totally, without reservation. When they commit to something, they commit fully. When they promise something, they keep that promise. Vexithal walked toward the door. That was my third lesson about humans. They remember everything. They document everything. They will pursue justice across decades and across star systems, but they are not mindless killers. They are capable of mercy. They are capable of restraint. They simply choose when to use violence and when to use peace. He stopped at the door and turned back. Now I will tell you why these 3 stories matter. Why I am telling them to you today. Why you need to understand what humans truly are. The cadets sat in silence. The weight of the 3 stories pressed down on them. These were not the tales of glory they had expected. These were lessons written in blood and fear. Vexthal moved slowly back to the center of the room. He was tired. Telling these stories always drained him, but they needed to hear this. They needed to understand. After these 3 encounters, I wrote reports to our high command, he said. Detailed reports about human psychology, about human warfare, about what makes them different from every other species in the galaxy. He pulled up one more holographic display. This one showed casualty numbers, battle statistics, win-loss ratios. The numbers told a story of their own. Look at these numbers, Vexthal said. In direct combat, we won more battles than we lost. Our technology was slightly better. Our tactics were sound. By traditional military analysis, we were winning the war. He highlighted certain statistics. But look closer. Look at the cost. Every battle we won against humans cost us more than it should have. Every victory was expensive. Every advance was slow and painful. A cadet asked, Sir, why did our command continue the war if it was so costly? Pride, Vexthal answered simply. Pride and misunderstanding. Our admirals thought that humans would eventually break, that they would tire, that they would accept defeat like rational beings. But humans are not rational when they believe they are right. He sat on the edge of a table. His old bones appreciated the rest. I requested permission to open peace negotiations. I was not alone. Many field commanders saw what I saw. We understood that we could not defeat humans without destroying ourselves in the process. But our political leaders did not listen, not at first. They said we could not show weakness. They said the coalition would lose respect if we negotiated with humans from a position of anything less than total strength. Vexithal made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. Total strength. We did not have total strength. We had expensive victories and mounting casualties. We had supply lines that humans attacked relentlessly. We had officers who died in the night because humans never forgot a wrong. He looked directly at the cadet who wore the Earth bracelet. You wear human jewelry. You have human friends. Have you ever asked them about the war? The young female cadet shook her head. No, sir. It seemed impolite. The war was a long time ago. The war was 70 years ago, Vexthal said. For us, that is 2 generations. We have moved on. We have forgiven. But humans, they remember. Go ahead. Ask your human friends about the war. They will tell you stories their grandparents told them, stories passed down with perfect clarity. He stood again and paced slowly. That is another thing about humans. They teach their young about history. Not just dates and places, but lessons, emotions, the feel of things. A human child today can tell you about wars that happened 300 years ago as if they happened yesterday. Why does this matter? A cadet asked. Because it means they never truly forget anything, Vexthal replied. They carry their history with them, their victories and their defeats, their pride and their shame. It makes them who they are. He stopped pacing and faced them all. During the war, I studied human culture. I read their books, watched their entertainment programs, listened to their music. I wanted to understand what made them fight the way they fought. I found something interesting. Humans tell stories. Constantly. Every human culture, every human nation, every human group has stories. Stories about heroes who never quit, about underdogs who won against impossible odds, about sacrifices made for the greater good. Vexithal gestured broadly. These are not just entertainment. These are instructions, teaching tools. Every human child grows up hearing stories about people who fought when they should have surrendered, who stood when they should have run, who died rather than compromise their values. Is that not irrational? A cadet asked. Is that not dangerous to teach children? It is both, Vexthal agreed. But it is also why they survive, why they thrive. Humans have a saying. They say that a civilization grows great when old people plant trees whose shade they will never sit under. He let that sink in. They think in generations, in centuries, in thousands of years. When a human makes a decision, they consider how it will affect humans not yet born. This is terrifying from a military perspective. It means you cannot break their will, because their will is not just for themselves. It is for every human who will ever live. They fight not just for their lives, but for the future of their species. The instructor in the back of the room spoke for the first time. Commander Vexthal, you said you would tell us why peace happened, why the war ended. Yes, Vexthal said. I will tell you. But first, I want you to understand something important. Something that will change how you see the humans you meet every day. He walked to the window again. Outside, the city lights were brighter now. Evening was coming. Humans and Kreltari walked together through the streets, shopping, talking, living peaceful lives. Everything I have told you about humans in war is true, Vexthal said quietly. They do not leave their dead. They fight harder when losing. They remember everything. They are capable of terrifying violence. He turned back to face the cadets. But I have not told you the most important thing about humans, the thing that truly makes them unique, the thing that convinced me we needed peace. The room was absolutely silent. Every ear was focused on his next words. Humans are capable of the same intensity in peace as they are in war, Vexthal said. Everything they do completely. When they love fiercely. When they help totally. When they commit to peace, they commit with the same determination they show in combat. He walked back to his chair and sat down. That is why peace works with humans. That is why it has lasted 70 years. Because they chose peace. And when humans choose something, they see it through. Vexthal looked at each cadet one final time. Now I will tell you how the war ended. I will tell you the truth that is not in your history books. And then you will understand why you should be grateful every single day that humans are our allies and not our enemies. Vexthal pulled up one last holographic display. This one showed a star map. The territories held by the Coalition and the territories held by humanity at the end of the war. The borders were complex, interweaving like fingers clasped together. This is how the war ended, he began. Not with a great final battle, not with surrender, not with exhaustion on both sides. The war ended because humanity offered peace, and we had the wisdom to accept it. He zoomed in on several locations. We were still winning battles. Our fleet was intact. Our manufacturing continued. By every military metric, we could have kept fighting, maybe for years, maybe for decades. But our field commanders understood something that our politicians did not. We were winning battles, but losing the war. Every victory cost too much. Every advance was too slow. And humans were learning, adapting, becoming more efficient at killing us. Vexthal highlighted a specific date on the timeline. A human diplomat named Carl Peterson requested a meeting with our high command. He came alone, in an unarmed ship. He had a simple message. He said that humans did not want to fight anymore, that they had proven they could not be defeated, and we had proven we could not be easily beaten. He said that both sides had lost enough people, that it was time to stop. A cadet raised her hand. But sir, why would we accept peace when we were winning? Were we winning? Vexthal asked. Look at these numbers. Human production was increasing. Their population was growing. Their technology was improving. Meanwhile, our casualties were mounting. Our economy was strained. Our people were tired. He turned off the holographic display. Carl Peterson did not threaten us. He did not demand anything. He simply stated facts. He said that if the war continued, humanity would eventually win through sheer determination. Not because they were stronger, but because they would never stop fighting. Then he said something that changed everything. He said that if we made peace, humans would commit to that peace completely. They would help rebuild what was destroyed. They would share technology. They would become partners instead of enemies. Vexthal sat down in his chair. I was in that meeting. I watched our admirals consider his words. One of them asked Peterson what guarantee we had that humans would honor the peace, that they would not simply rebuild and attack again. Peterson said that humans had no interest in conquest, that they had never started the war, that they only wanted to live in peace and explore the galaxy. He said their word was their guarantee. Our admirals laughed. They said that words were meaningless, that any species could make promises. Vexthal smiled, remembering. Peterson did not get angry. He simply said that we should ask any species that had ever made a treaty with humans. Ask if humans had ever broken their word. So we checked. We contacted the Vren, the Salthari, every species that had dealings with humanity, and we found something remarkable. Humans had never broken a treaty. Never. Not once in their entire history of space travel. A long silence filled the room. The cadets were beginning to understand. We made peace, Vexthal said, and humans kept their word. They helped us rebuild. They shared medical technology that saved millions of Krelthari lives. They opened trade that benefited both our economies. They became the allies they promised they would be. He stood and walked to the window. Do you see those humans out there, walking through our city? Some of them are descendants of the soldiers who fought against us. Some of them carry the memories of battles their grandparents told them about. But they are not our enemies. They are our friends. our partners, our allies. Because 70 years ago, they chose peace. And humans, as I have told you, commit completely to whatever they choose. Vexthal turned back to the cadets. Now I will tell you the real truth. The truth that our history books do not quite say. We did not win the war. We survived it. There is a difference. He walked slowly to the front of the room. Every battle we won was more expensive than it should have been. Every human unit we defeated took too many of our soldiers with them. Every human position we captured had already been stripped of anything useful. We could not break them. We could not make them quit. We could not make them forget. And eventually we would have lost. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 20, but we would have lost. A cadet spoke up, his voice uncertain. Sir, are you saying we were defeated? No, Vexthal said firmly. I am saying we were wise enough to stop before we were defeated. There is honor in that. There is wisdom in that. Our leaders saw the truth and acted on it. He activated one more image. It showed a disaster relief operation. A Krelthari colony had been hit by a plague 5 years ago. Human medical teams were working around the clock. The image showed a human doctor, elderly but still working. Her name tag read Dr. Lisa Hayes. This woman was a combat medic during the war, Vexthal said. She fought at Epsilon Ridge. She was wounded retrieving human bodies under fire. Now she runs a medical charity that helps both humans and Krelthari. She has saved thousands of lives. He showed another image, an elderly human man at a ceremony honoring veterans from both sides. This is Jake Morrison. He was the sergeant who carried his dead soldiers through enemy fire. Now he runs a foundation that helps veterans from all species. He helps Krelthari soldiers who suffer from war trauma. This is what I mean, Vexthal said. Humans do not do things halfway. In war, they fought with complete determination. In peace, they help with complete dedication. They are the same species. They have not changed. We are simply fortunate they are fighting for us now instead of against us. The door to the hall opened. A young human in a coalition uniform entered. He was there to give a joint training presentation. His name tag read Lieutenant Morrison. His first initial was J. Vexthal, and the young human officer nodded to each other, a gesture of respect between allies. The old commander turned back to his cadets. That is Jake Morrison's grandson, third generation of his family to serve in the military. The same family that fought us 70 years ago now fights beside us. This is possible because humans honor their commitments, because they remember their history but do not let it control their future, because they chose peace and they keep that choice every single day. Vexthal walked toward the door where the young Lieutenant Morrison waited. Before leaving, he turned back one final time. I have told you 3 stories today. Stories about humans in combat, about their determination, their memory, their refusal to quit or forget. These stories are true, but they are not complete. The complete truth is this. Peace with humanity is not just the absence of war. It is a choice they make every day, a choice to be allies instead of enemies, a choice to build instead of destroy, a choice to help instead of harm. He looked at each cadet one last time. Never forget what humans are capable of in war, but also never forget what they are capable of in peace. Both are equally impressive. Both are equally real. They have not become soft. They have not become weak. They are the same humans who fought us to a standstill. They simply direct that intensity toward different goals now. Vexthal moved to leave, then paused. And pray every day that they never stop choosing peace. Because if humans ever decide to go to war again, I hope with all my heart that they are fighting for us and not against us. The old commander left the hall with Lieutenant Morrison. The cadets sat in silence, processing everything they had heard. The cadet with the Earth bracelet looked down at it. She touched it gently, seeing it with new understanding. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Humans and Krelthari walked together through the streets, working together, living together, building a future together. And in the Veterans Hall, young soldiers began to understand the true weight of peace, how precious it was, how hard it had been won, and how important it was to protect it.